What's up, folks? First episode of the SEC Connect. I got 4 out of the 5 guys here today. I got myself, I got Ty Hayes, Jay Smith, Chris with a K. Steven's going to be on here for the next episode. But, folks, today we got a few great topics we're going to talk about for SEC football content. Here we go, folks. Topics: Stetson Bennett, Texas and OU. Are we going to the SEC here next year for 2024? Nick Saban and his NIL statements that he just, had here to the press on a Monday. Bama's OC and DC search and Josh Heupel's extension. So, folks, let's go ahead and start this thing off, man. Stetson Bennett got arrested in Dallas, Texas this weekend. Do we think it was enough, news coverage on this? Is he getting a pass on this, folks? What do you guys think?
Well, let me lead the way on this one real quick. And I have, there's a reason why I want to lead the way. Is okay, Stetson, you too old to be doing this stuff, man. You're old. Like, you're older than you're about as old as the quarterbacks in the Super Bowl as Jalen Hurts. You're older than Jalen Hurts, and you're just barely younger than Patrick Mahomes.
And you're older than Lamar.
And you're older than Lamar. What are you doing? Why are you even putting yourself in the news at your big age, bro? You're mid-20s. What is this? This is something you do at 19. This is something you do at 20, 21, when you're not supposed to even be drinking. What are we doing? So I just want to lead off with that, because that's the only thing I want to know. I just want to know how you doing this at your big age when you've been drinking since you was probably 17. So come on, man.
So I'll jump in here and I'll say this right here, okay? Should Baker have gotten more coverage? Well, no, I know the answer to that. Baker did get a lot of coverage.
A lot of coverage.
But with Stetson Bennett, I think the only thing about it is that there's not a solid expectation out there for where he's going to land. We know that he landed on his feet. Nobody got hurt, which is obviously the most important thing. Wasn't trying to drive any of that stuff. This is kind of, they're going to play it off as a slap on the wrist. Hopefully he learns, because let's be honest, this isn't the first time that we've seen him, pretty inebriated, right? Because we've seen those Good Morning
America.
Yeah, we've seen those videos. But hey, it's just one of those things. It's an unfortunate situation, but hopefully he learns from this. But like I said, it doesn't really. I think in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really hurt him, but it definitely doesn't help him as well, because like I said, there's not really a solid expectation for his draft stock. I think he's a guy that could go and potentially be a Chase Daniels, where he gets his shot from time to time, but he's just a solid backup quarterback in the league. Maybe not even year 2, maybe year 3 sometimes on the roster. But at the same time, I think that I think that's the knock on him, is that for everything that Georgia has done right on the field, they've had some obviously had some woes off the field, and still shout out RIP to the players and the personnel that that passed away in that car accident. But this right here is just a lot of stuff that's coming out of Georgia. It's just like, dang, how were they able to keep this under wraps for so long until on the end of the season?
Yeah, and it's almost one of those things where when it rains, it pours. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those situations where at Georgia, you could just be seeing normal college football things, right? Where it's just like normal amount of college partying and whatever. And now it's just like when it rains, it pours there. So it's going to be interesting to watch going forward. But specifically about Stetson Bennett, Chris, I think you hit the nail on the head. Whenever these NFL draft guys are talking about Stetson Bennett, I don't think the knock they're going to write on the board, he was arrested for public intox, right? Like, I don't think that's going to be where they start on the knocks. I think Baker was a little bit different, is because when you went to go knock Baker, which we have to understand, these guys' job is to get these guys at a place in the draft that saves their team the most amount of money, basically getting the best value. So that's why narratives are pushed every single draft, and it's messed up. It's terrible, but that's why it happens. You always see a guy. What happened with Jalen Carter? Another Georgia guy just a few weeks ago. People are saying, oh, well, he's got character issues. The whole Georgia team's coming out saying this guy's a great teammate, this, that, and the other. Well, there are narratives that these NFL people are going to push. And with Stetson, I don't think this is going to be one. Baker was going to be a first-round guy. They were trying to push narratives to see if they could get him to fall any sort of way to save the money on him. That's just not what's happening with Stetson. Now, I completely agree, Chris. It's not going to be any knock on him, but it's one of those things where if you're a Georgia fan, you're like, man, can we get an end to the news cycle about the extracurricular?
And I'll say one more thing. We already know that a lot of these prospects at the NFL Combine, at their pro days, they get asked everything. I mean, was your dad a pimp? Was your mom this? Was your,
wild questions, left field,
random questions that you're just like, what?
Flagrant questions.
Well, they're trying to provoke.
Yeah,
they're trying to get a reaction.
And about this, they're gonna be like, so what's so I'm interested to see how that shakes out too. Like, do they ask him anything that's off the wall about the Good Morning America appearances and now this right here? Like, I'm interested to see that.
Yeah,
and I think the question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so my only thing about this is, does it show a trend, right? So we saw the Good Morning America. We saw him, a little lit. And now he gets arrested for public intoxication, knocking on doors, right? I forgot how the whole situation went, but is this a trend for him? Is this just that he got caught, twice, once in public on TV, and now once he got arrested for? So, when you look at a guy who is potentially, let's be honest, this might be the most winningest quarterback of all time in college football history. He's won 4 playoff games, 2 national championships.
He's lost 1 game.
Yeah, he's lost 1 game. So you're looking at a guy who's always been he's been this big underdog. He might be the most winningest quarterback in college football history. Hell, he might be top 3 college players to ever come out of Georgia when you think about it. And that's saying a lot just from the fame aspect and from the success aspect, right? You got to put, of course, Herschel up there. You got your guys like, Gurley, everybody else, like, Champ Bailey, all those guys are coming out there. But nobody has accomplished more on the field than Stetson Bennett has. So is this something that is a trend with, with Stetson Bennett? Or is this something that's just I got caught 2 times at 2 just horrible moments that never happened, but you guys just caught me at those 2 times?
If I could start off with this, then Jay, it's tough for me because it was at 2 of the highest points. Like one of them was right after a national championship, and that's when the Good Morning America thing happened. And then now this one's a little bit tougher, right? Like the Good Morning America one for me, terrible optics. I'm not here to it, but like that one, at least it's like, okay, well, it's the celebratory phase. You're a young guy, okay. This one's a little bit tougher, but like Chris said, he wasn't behind the wheel. Hopefully he learns from it. It's tough to say it's a pattern, but at the same time, it's tough to argue that it's not. It's one of those gray areas where, depending on how you want to frame the situation, is where you'll get your argumentation.
Jay, go ahead, Jay. Go ahead.
And I think, and that's kind of my point of why I opened with the question I asked is, why you do this at your big age? Like, you can make the excuse for somebody that's, like I said, 20, 21 years old. That's pretty easy because it's your first time drinking. You don't realize your tolerance. You don't understand what alcohol really does to you when you drink too much after a celebration. Yeah. That is common. But when you're at 25, 26 years old, because you've been drinking for years. And so real quick on this, and kind of with all the points you guys are making, I mean, you're not wrong with any of it. I'm just trying to better understand with the quarterback. Of course, we know that because of his size, he's already technically ruled out of being drafted. I mean, he's 5'9". They said 11, but we know he's 5'9", maybe 180 something pounds, and we ain't seen no quarterback that size get drafted.
He's around the same size as Bryce. I think the issue is he doesn't have the extra factors that make Bryce's size. Well, there's pictures of them doing the handshake after the national championship, and they're very analogous in size.
I could have sworn Bryce was closer to 6 feet, whereas Stetson's like 5'9".
Can I jump in here real quick? So the thing about Stetson Bennett, here's one thing that I wish we all could do. It's just go out in Athens one night and just ask people, like, hey, what's Stetson Bennett like? Do you see him around here a lot? Because that's kind of the indicator right there. And so we've all graduated from universities where there were high profile athletes on campus, and some of them went to the bars, some of them didn't. Some of them went to the bars, and some of them would have a couple of drinks, talk to some girls, and leave. Some of them would get lit all the way until about 2:00 in the morning, and you would not see them do anything but try to sober up around probably 3:00 in the morning. So I think that's one of the things that, you know, he's on a high right now, like a self high, as far as like, hey, won another national championship, play for one of the best teams in all of college football the past 2 years. I was the quarterback. I was that guy. I got the name. So the whole thing is that, hey, look, he's 25 years old, but I'll chalk it up to him being a 25-year-old that let the clout get a little bit to his head. So I think he's fine. But like I said, I mean, I think that the X factor in this, the one thing that could really kind of give us the conclusive evidence we need, is the one thing that we're probably never ever going to do, which is go out in Athens maybe when we go to the Big 12.
Don't tempt me.
We won't.
Yeah.
But NFL scouts will. I think
NFL
that's what's going to
scouts,
happen to them.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
Fair.
You know,
Actually,
yeah.
All right, so this is the last comment on this. You know, practice going to the next topic, but the one thing that people are praising Stetson Bennett on is his maturity level. Right, he's a 25-year-old quarterback, and you know the one thing that you expect a 25-year-old quarterback coming out of college is he should be more mature than that 19 or 20-year-old kid that is coming out of college after his redshirt sophomore year. All right, so if that's not the case and he hasn't got it at the age of 25, when is he going to get it? But let's go to the second topic at hand, folks. Texas and OU and the rest of the Big 12 just got their schedules for the 2023 season. So that's meaning Texas and OU are still going to be in the Big 12 for the 2023. There was small hope that Texas and OU were going to go to the SEC this year, but it's looking like that's going to happen in 24. What are you guys' thoughts on Texas and OU going to the SEC in 2024, and how do you think they're going to do?
I'll start this off. I want to talk about the business side of this before we really get into this. And granted, what I'm using is a little bit dated, but I think it still carries, right? I don't think the numbers will have shifted to such a significant degree that this information is no longer good, because it's from December 12th, 2021. And it was ranking college football's most valuable programs. And they did the top 25. It was 24/7 Sports. And 12 are SEC teams if you include Texas and Oklahoma. There's a Power 5 conference, and half of the top 25 most valuable teams in the nation are residing in one conference once this move is complete. So whenever people ask, why would Texas and OU do this? Money.
Yeah.
Very simple. There is billions of dollars at work here, people. This is a very simple and not only that, in terms of what we as fans need to expect, you know, getting away from the business side of this, you have two major brands that typically find themselves as top 25 teams entering into the SEC. Now, I have been an SEC fan, right? Like everybody else here on the panel. Jay, you're a Tennessee fan as well as an Oklahoma fan, but Nino, Texas, Chris, Oklahoma. One of the things the SEC loves to talk about, because we truly believe it, is, hey, week to week, like it's a gauntlet. And we can point to the end of the season saying, oh, well, this team only had this record. And SEC fans will say, yeah, because we knocked each other around all year playing the SEC teams. Adding Texas and Oklahoma only strengthens my argumentation in that as an SEC fan. So, of course, I'm happy about it, because if I'm arguing that Bama should get into a playoff spot over a Wisconsin or a Michigan, I'm going to point to, yeah, well, did you have to play half of the most valuable teams in the nation to get there? No, we did. So yeah, we're going to get, I think this is a great move. I think it absolutely is coming in 2024. I don't see any reason to prolong it until 2025, because college football playoffs are expanding then. What better way to make this move happen than whenever there's a grand change in college football? It just makes the most sense to unveil all of those at one time. That way it's smooth transitions.
I'll jump in here and I'll say this right here. I think let me just piggyback off of what Ty was saying with the whole like business side of it. In my opinion, just from kind of loosely but trying to be as close as possible as far as just, looking at the terms and all the rest of that stuff and the money. My belief is that there was too large of a gap. And let me preface that by saying not OU, but the Big 12 did what this year to get their teams in there? They paid the buyouts. I don't necessarily think that the SEC was opposed to possibly helping pay buyouts for Texas and OU, but I think that they said, "Hey, we don't have anything to lose right now. We have more to we have everything to gain." So you can stay there. You could do what you need to do, and if you want us to do this, I really believe that the SEC could have made it happen, just like the Big 12 made it happen. But I think what happened for OU and Texas is that they said, "Okay, let's take our time. Let's stack our classes. Let's actually build what we want to build. Let's get this in here." It's not about playing a weak Big 12 schedule or playing this or playing that. I think what it was that it was too much of a gap, but now that gap has closed to where OU and Texas can say, "Hey, look, opposed to having to pay 150 million, opposed to having to pay 90 million, opposed to having to pay 70 million. Now, if we do leave early, we'll probably have to pay 35, 30 mil, which we'll be able to really
you'll
counter.
Make that back.
Yeah, we'll counter that with what we make from the Big 12 this year. And then when we move into the SEC, we'll see our return of investment that first year, probably as soon as we roll in, because everybody's going to want to get the new SEC logo on their gear." So I think that if you just break it down like that, I mean, it makes sense. I don't know if that's what it actually was or what it boiled down to, but I just feel like now there's not too much of a gap between these universities to say, "Hey, we have enough to make that move," which I know that we went back and forth in Texas say that OU is broke and all the rest of this stuff. But I think that what Ty said, OU has a lot of money. Maybe we don't have the boosters or whatnot that you guys would have, the plethora of them that you have down there in Texas. But the thing about it is that both schools are able to do it. But I think that they said, "Hey, this is still too much money." Because look, you could be rich and still make a bad investment,
Exactly.
So that's
Exactly.
the whole thing. So I think that Texas and OU are looking at the investment and say, "You know what? I don't think it's worth it yet, because if we wait until 2024, that's probably the year." And I really would love to talk to somebody in the financial department, somebody who can actually give some information, because I would love to see the numbers on what it actually would take for them to leave, or what it would have took them, what it would have took for them to leave a year ago, 2 years ago, or however long ago. Because it's not like it's a secret. OU and Texas have been flirting with the SEC, the Pac-12, ACC, even in some aspects for the last probably 8 to 10 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, so my thing too, Chris, on that is Texas and OU got a hell of a recruiting class last year and this year as well. Headlined by two of the top quarterbacks in the nation. You guys getting Jackson Arnold, us getting Arch. Texas and OU goes for the SEC in 2023. God forbid something happens to a Dylan Gabriel. God forbid, something happens to Quinn. And those high-profile freshmen that we have are forced into the SEC's gauntlet as a true freshman and have to play, because we all understand that the depth behind OU's quarterback, Texas quarterback, is not as deep as some other teams in the nation. And so guys,
you Ohio State.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, of course, we got Murphy as well. I love me some Malik Murphy. I think he's going to be a star. But the fans, the boosters are going to want to see a Jackson Arnold play if DG can't play. They're going to want to see an Arch Manning play if something happens to Quinn. So, I think this is very, very calculated by both those schools as well, because they understand I don't want to throw my prized investment out there. Game number 3 against Georgia. I don't want Jackson Arnold. I don't want Arch going against Georgia in their 3rd game after leaving high school. And so this is very calculated. And I think both schools understand that this is their time to capitalize on building some more depth within those classes, especially along the offense and the defensive line. I think both teams have done very well when it comes to the 2022 class as well as 23 class as well, so that when they do go to the SEC, they are postured perfectly just fine to compete right away.
And Nick, you made a good point with that last statement of it being calculated and making this, they're taking their time and trying to plan things out, because this is kind of one argument I've made with people when it comes to the difference between a Big 12 and like an SEC setup. And it's more so, it's around recruiting mainly. And it's this, you have to recruit differently to win the Big 12. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the way you recruit to win the Big 12 doesn't usually let you beat a top tier SEC school. Top tier. I'm talking about legendary SEC schools. Now, you can beat an Ole Miss. You'll beat a Mississippi State, probably Florida too in a bowl game, but you're not going to beat Bama. You're not going to beat LSU at their best. You're not going to beat Bama at their best or Georgia at their best. But the Big 12, because of the way those offenses work, we've seen them be very successful in bowl games against every other conference. So you got to get more nimble, faster defensive linemen, offensive linemen you can switch out really quickly that are ready for a air raid, constantly in shape type of go offense. That's the thing. Both teams have done a big push in recruiting in the trenches at size. They're getting the bigger players that are built for the SEC. So that's really where you're seeing that difference. So you're right. I think they are calculating and saying we need about 2 years of recruits. Then that will give us just enough experience to be able to really compete in the SEC. So when that third class comes in and we're in the SEC, we've got depth. Yeah. Now, the question is going to be, of course, coaching. We got to make sure that both schools keep the same coaches so that they can actually take their time and get into this. And so I think that makes the most sense with it. But the other thing, too, is this. I know we talk about money and everybody jokes about Oklahoma being broke. And just like Chris mentioned, just because you're rich, if you make bad investments, don't mean you that. Like, there's all kinds of reports about revenue and everything. And just like Ty mentioned about rankings for the schools, listen to this. So in 2019, valuations, Wall Street Journal had a picture of the top college football valuations. Texas was number one, and they were ranked in 2018. They were at $1 billion, and then you had Alabama at number 3 at $1 billion. Ohio State was number 2. Michigan, Notre Dame, Georgia, Oklahoma, Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, all of them in the top 10 of valuation for 18. 19's revenue, Texas $163 million. Ohio State $136 million, Bama $140, Michigan $130, Notre Dame was at $118, but Oklahoma had $126 million in rev. They bring in money. They've got money. Yeah. We've got money. They just don't spend it. They just don't spend it, and we don't have high profile named boosters like Texas does. We all know, Red and all of them big boys down there because they're all oil guys. And that's their thing. They're pretty flashy with their lifestyle. So money-wise, both schools got it. And so the last piece on them going in 24 makes sense because why pay a buyout because the Big 12 wants you to when you can take your time and be meticulous about building your team, your school, your facilities in preparation and just take their money. Like, what sense does it make to leave early and pay a buyout? Because the thing about it is that the Big 12's not even balking. They're not even allowing they're balking at the idea of it being a smaller settlement. And it's like, no, they're like, no, you got to pay full payout if you want to leave early. Like, okay, we ain't going to leave. Well, why are you still here? Because we're not paying full payout. We're not stupid.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying is that you don't have to be a finance guy to understand that each institution did a cost benefit and cost effectiveness and analysis over this entire deal. They did their homework, they did their research, and now you kind of see why it's taking so long. And I think a lot of fans are eager for them to go, and they think that they're tied. I don't necessarily think that either institution let me rephrase that. I don't think that OU and Texas have to be at the hip to go to the SEC right now. I think that either institution can probably go. They can find their way out of the deal, but it makes sense for both of them to go at the same time and for both of them to pay as little as possible if they have to pay anything on this buyout. So,
If the Big 12 wants them gone now, they need to go ahead and cut them a deal, but they won't. And so OU and Texas are smart. They're like, okay, we'll stay.
But the Big 12, I'll tell you something. They don't want Texas and OU to leave anytime soon.
No.
No, because everybody knows when Texas or OU goes into somebody's stadium, that's probably the only time their stadium's going to sell out that entire
Guaranteed. Guaranteed sell out. Yeah.
You know,
Well, in the Big 12.
Yeah.
They sell out stadiums in the SEC. Like, he's going out of style.
I mean, the Mississippi States, even Vanderbilt is gonna want to get a piece of OU and Texas. You know, the Kentuckys of the world. A lot of those teams.
That's exactly why y'all are moving to the SEC, because you want to go to a conference that matches y'all's energy and passion.
And
like Nebraska up there, and they always sell out, but they at the same time, you know, they got them. Michigan and Michigan State are really them. Michigan and Ohio State are really, and Penn State, they're really the four that always sell out. So exact same. I get that.
And this is why, and this will be the last comment on it, Nick, if you want it. But this is why I know it's a crazy analogy. I know it's a crazy comparison. This is why I say OU and Texas going to the SEC is very reminiscent of Kevin Nash and Scott Hall going to WCW. They're outsiders. They're poison. They're bad for business. All of this. And it's just like wrestling back, especially back in the early days, and you still see it pop up now. With the Big 12 moving these teams into the Big 12 in 2023, they went into business for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Having OU and Texas play those 11 a.m. games, especially OU playing all these 11 a.m. games for the past however many years.
Crazy.
In the business for themselves. So that's why I say, look, if you think that OU and Texas are not itching to get out of the Big 12, you're fooling yourself. Okay?
Fair. And
the thing about it is that, like I said, they just did their homework, and this is what was the smartest route. We all laughed at 2025. I don't think 2025.
Nobody believed that.
I do think 2024 is realistic. I think that this is the last season that we will play, and I think that's kind of the handshake deal, and I think we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, guys. We got two iconic brands going into the iconic conference in college football, and it just makes sense. It just makes sense, you know. Texas, OU, Arkansas, Texas A&M. That little quartet right there alone should have never been split up. That little quartet right there alone should, that should have never been, actually torn apart. But next topic, folks, and this is something I know Ty's probably going, he'll probably want to hit on this here, but Nick Saban had a press conference here on Monday, and he talked about two certain players requesting a total sum of $1.3 million in NIL funds, and he turned those players around and didn't accept them on his team. Ty, go ahead and start us off on this one, man.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to get into specifics, right? It's not my business to say anything about that. But here's the deal. I've seen a lot of people online saying, oh, Nick Saban's a hypocrite. He doesn't like NIL. This is the same man that just gave a speech at the Texas High School Coaches Association in San Antonio that was bragging about his quarterback that hadn't taken a snap getting over $1 million in NIL deals. Yeah. The deal is that Bryce had been on campus for a year. They had an understanding of who he was. They knew that when you listen to Saban's comments, it's just the fact of the wild, wild west out of it all. And we have to understand, Nick Saban has been in this business for a long time, right? Like if he gives an evaluation and then that player comes to him and says, okay, well, you want me plus I want 800,000. I'm going to trust Saban's evaluations, right? Like that might sound harsh, but Kirby, these guys get it right a hell of a lot often more than they get it wrong. It's why when you look at the development rates on like 24/7 Sports, Georgia and Bama, and surprisingly, not an SEC team, but it's on my mind, Virginia Tech blue chip prospect development rate is astronomically high, like way higher than you would think it'd be. But it's these evaluations. Now, Saban is obviously pro NIL. It's the reason why he said that at the Texas High School Association. It's the reason why he gave that impassioned speech to his boosters about Jimbo Fisher a year ago, because he understands where he's at and how they have to mobilize. I just don't think Saban is going to play a lot of these games where people come in and demand money. I just think at that point, Saban's like, all right, well, you've almost self-selected yourself out. Now, whether or not that's going to be a sustainable model, we'll see. Luckily for Nick Saban, Alabama recruits itself on the development, because one thing we do know is this: NIL money is great, but NIL money is funny money compared to that NFL money. And these dudes are still getting a lot of money in the NFL. Like, didn't Alabama, I think they had a graphic where their players in contracts are earning a combined like 1.3 billion. It was something crazy, like what they've earned in the NFL.
They had 70 players in the NFL on current rosters this year.
Yes,
70
most
Alabama players on the rosters this year.
And that's exactly my point, Nino. That sells itself. So whenever people are like, oh, this isn't sustainable for Nick to do, well, unfortunately, Alabama is almost the exception, not the rule. They can say, okay, well, you don't like that, we're not going to pay you this. That's how many NFL players we have. So roll the dice. Like, and Georgia can do the same. Like, there are certain institutions that just can do this right now. But I wasn't inherently surprised, right? I just think that it was the demands of it that Nick Saban was probably like, yeah, that's not happening.
You know what? I got something to say about that too, Todd. Mac Brown used to say a comment when he was coaching Texas. He goes, anytime he gets in front of a camera, he's talking to mama, right? He wants to talk to mama.
True.
Well, Nick Saban in this new NIL era, every time he's getting in front of a camera, he's talking to the NCAA compliance office.
He's sending messages 100%. Yes.
Boosters. Yeah.
He is sending a message because, anybody who thinks that pre-NIL and post-NIL, the Alabama players weren't getting paid, you're fooling yourself, right? It's happened at every school, every big-time school. These players are getting paid regardless if it was NIL or not.
Yeah.
Under the table,
college football. Yeah.
It's just college football. NIL, the only thing that NIL has done has made it legal and put everything above the table and kind of even the playing field for people who didn't want to get that dirty, right? So anytime Nick Saban talks about NIL now, it is a true opportunity for him to get in front of a camera and talk to the NCAA compliance officer, because a kid that is that bold to come out and tell a head coach or somebody on his staff that he wants $800,000, what kind of character, first off, does that kid have? We just talked about Stetson Bennett, right? And if he's that bold to say that to Saban or somebody on the staff, when he gets behind closed doors, what is he going to say to his friends or his homeboys or to somebody who's recording, that he doesn't know about, and he's on camera on a rigged up camera, basically saying, "Oh man, I talked to Nick Saban. I told him I want 800. He said I can't give you 8, but I give you 750." Right? And so now that's in the compliance office. So he's going to handle this above the table, all legal, and do this the way that it should be done, because coaches can't really talk about the NIL collectives. They can tell you what they are, but they can't tell you how much you're going to get. And so Nick Saban, he is making sure that when he gets in front of a camera, he's not talking to mama, he's talking to the NCAA compliance office to make sure that everything is checked off with him. Because when that player gets busted down the line eventually, he's going to say, I told you. That's the guy I was talking about. I told him no.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Saban is notorious for sending messages through the media.
Yeah. He's very subliminal with it.
I want to jump off where Ty last left off, and that is the demands, basically, of what these players are requesting.
Ooh.
It kind of gets a bit ridiculous at times, simply because, think about what this offensive lineman, Ty, what's his name? The kid that transferred to
I don't know.
Ty, come on.
I don't know.
Anyways, so that kid, the rumor out there is that I guess he asked for $500,000 and then for Alabama to pay for his get his girlfriend into law school and
pay for
law school tuition. Yeah. And I don't know what it's like there. Here in Oklahoma, I think that OU is 20 maybe for the whole year. or so. Like, but I know like OCU is like 40 per semester.
In-state is 23.
Yeah. So I mean, it costs a pretty penny to go to law school, and so I mean, hey, get rich or die trying. You got to ask. I mean, you got to make the request. I mean, if you ball it like that, do it. It's just crazy. It's like, for me, I'm like, okay, Nick Saban, I don't see him being a jerk with that move, because it's like, okay, I get the $500,000, but now you're telling me that I need to go and demand that they bypass all these other students who are going to go and take the same test, same exam. And now I need to have your girlfriend bypass that and go take classes that she may or may not pass. Or in law school, from personal experience, I can tell you like this right here. You show up the first day and you have 160 people in your class. The very next week, you may have 130. And that it doesn't matter if people came in there with a 145 on the LSAT, or they came in there with a 175. It's all about this right here. And are you mentally tough to get through it? It's like boot camp the first 6 weeks. So the whole thing is that you're taking a chance to pay for somebody's tuition that may not even be there the next day, because it's not a game once you get in there. It's just like with some of these college athletes, as soon as they get there to college, it's like, damn, I didn't realize we're going to work out and actually do this much. But it's just the audacity. I think that's what got Nick Saban on this one. Was like, really? Like that's what you want?
Yeah, and to piggyback off of your point, and I'll pass it off quickly, I don't know if Alabama's law school is like this. I don't know if Oklahoma's law school is like this, but I'll never forget when I was touring Ohio State's law school, the dean of the law school, one of the major selling points to us, because we just come from a tour from Northwestern's law school, he said, we don't have like the competitive structure here, meaning like if 10 students in the class earn an A, all 10 students will earn an A. And y'all might sit here and be like, yeah, that's how it should be. That's not. Like, there are a lot of law schools where you might have 3 A's in that class and everything else is graded on a curve.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, just kind of piggybacking. I know that has no bearing on, but it's a totally different mindset, mental game. It's a grind they put you through.
It's a grind. And so
There's a reason I'm here.
Yeah. And so you're sitting there just like, man, that's a lot to ask, man. Like, do you actually, because I don't think like that kid right there particularly, I don't think that he actually thought that out. I think that he was just like, okay, it works like that. It's not, you're not going to get any special privileges there either. And so, and the thing about it is, it's like, dude, this is just your girlfriend. You may not even be with her next week. Like,
well, I think the other thing to consider with this is, of course, the age of the kid that's there and them understanding just how the world actually works. Because a lot of people don't get that. They don't truly understand it at that age sometimes. It takes a bit of experience to get it. They may not have the proper guidance from, an adult or whatnot. But kind of to go off of what Ty was talking about here, actually, all you guys kind of made mention of this, is with Saban sending these signals, I know a lot of people think that, NIL has gone to hell or whatnot. But we've talked about this in the past. It's going to level out. Right now, it's wild. It's going to level itself out eventually, because at a certain point, all of this money that's being brought together by boosters and all of these people, they're going to start looking for some sort of a quote unquote return on investment. And I say that in quote unquote because there's one thing that has zero return on investment when it comes to sports in college in general, is boosters. Like, they're the only people in the world that will burn money at their school and literally get nothing out of it besides bragging rights. Like, that's it. Like, and they have no problem with it. Like, it's cool. It's like, I'm going to throw thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of dollars up here. Like, what are you getting from it? Well, they may put my name on a building, but outside of that, my school might win. That's what I'm going for. So it'll level out. It'll level out on NIL piece. But it's what's funny about this kid and asking for this, and what we're going to see is this is going to be the real weeding out of those 5 stars that truly aren't 5 stars. Like the players that are just that we think are talented based upon ratings, and you realize that, because only like 50% of 5 stars go pro. And when you look at it, when it comes to some of these kids, that's the attitude that usually helps them push themselves out of being an elite player at that level. They may be athletic or whatnot, but they live off of that and don't want to be taught. those type of players are going to weed themselves out. So to be honest, I kind of am glad that these kids exist because then you get the better understanding of, you had a character that I definitely don't want on my roster. And I promise you, those two names, you probably won't hear about them in the next 2 years.
I think one thing to keep in mind, and I'll end it on this right here. I think one thing to keep in mind is that not only that kid, not only what Saban is doing, but the saga that was Jalen Rashada. I think that's something that put college football on alert, the entire college football world, that this is something serious that could happen. Do I think Arizona State is a good fit for him? I really don't know. I think Arizona State is kind of the trendy place right now because you kind of got the cool coaches, you got the cool guys that are there who have serious connections and are good coaches. But the whole thing is that we're gonna have to see, because in my opinion, I'm like, okay, Jalen Rashada, you're gonna have to show me that you're different than Jaden Daniels. Like, I feel like I've seen you before, and especially with you going to Arizona State, I feel like I've been here before. So show me that you're worth the 13 mil or however much that you've gotten. But it's something that Ty, Jay, and we're going to dive deep into that, people, as far as the NIL, because it's it's a vast topic. It can be very vast, but if you really take out the nuts and bolts of it, you can really get to the bottom of it pretty quickly. So
real quick, I got one thing that I like to make comment on, and I'm trying to make sure I do this every time I talk about NIL or money to these kids. Anybody watching this, please do me a favor. Do not be dumb enough to believe that taxes is going to be a problem for these kids. And I'm going to say this for this one reason. If taxes are a problem to these kids, that's a failure on the coach. If these guys are leaders of men, they should have all the infrastructure set up for these players. If they don't, that's on the coach. It's not on the kid. Just FYI.
Exactly. So last thing about this topic, folks, is, when it comes to those 5 stars who are trying to, get this money off top, it kind of shows you what this generation is too, right? It's a me first generation. It's everybody gets a trophy generation. But that's what makes 5 stars like a Bryce Young really special, right? That's what makes him so special. That's what makes a guy like Bijan Robinson a special guy. These guys got a lot of money through the NIL process, a lot of money, but it seems like they did it the right way, right? They didn't go out there pounding their chest talking about give me money, but that also comes from just looking at those two guys. Those two guys come from really good foundations too, and a lot of these kids that are high profile athletes, sometimes the foundation that they come from, the home environment, the neighborhoods that they come from, aren't the best foundations that are going to put them in the right situation to ask the right question about NIL, or to not even know that telling the greatest college football coach of all time that I'm not coming to the school unless I get $800,000, or I'm getting $500,000 and my girlfriend's going to law school. Like, that might not be the best thing to do. So, all right, folks, we talked enough about NIL today. I'm pretty sure that we're going to have some more episodes on that, but let's go down to topic number 4. Alabama. Alabama right now has no offensive coordinator, no defensive coordinator. They're in a current OC and DC search with a lot of candidates. Noise has, come about saying that University of Washington's offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubbs, some people are saying that he declined the offer. Some people saying he wasn't the offer. What are you guys' thoughts on the OC and the DC situation at Alabama, folks?
Let me lead this one. Let me lead this one. Because I got a question for Ty on this for the most part. Kind of curious. Now, this isn't anything, I'm not taking shots or anything like that, but I'm truly curious about your thoughts on this, Ty. I just saw an article that popped out. 24/7 just gave Charles Kelly Recruiter of the Year. And he left kind of early. Then right after he left, not too long later, Pete Golding basically left also. Do you think Saban wish he'd have kept him instead? I'm truly curious about that.
No, have you ever seen his numbers as defensive coordinator?
I see it in his past, yes. but it
And
seems
also,
like
look, I love Charles Kelly.
Mhm.
That safety room. I mean, Nino, you were a Texas fan. What did y'all do to our safeties?
Yeah.
Jay, you're a Tennessee fan. What did y'all do to our safeties?
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm more so and you're it's fair. I'm curious because how long has he been there?
He's been there. Look, he is a phenomenal coach. I'm not trying to take shots in the. He's a phenomenal coach. He's a phenomenal recruiter. Bama has sent him to secure commitments from everybody, from Will Anderson, offense. That dude is a menace on the trail. But in terms of overtaking the defensive coordinator job, no.
He's there 4 years. So yeah,
he was like
okay.
Super.
And I was truly curious about that. I was truly just curious about that because when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I know that he's a menace when it comes to recruiting and stuff. I was curious if Saban wanted to have someone that he could have more of a thumb on, and while he figures out the new transition to a new DC, if he would have preferred to keep him since he decided that Pete Golden was not.
Well, did you see who was number 3 on the list?
Who's that?
Freddie Roach, Alabama defensive line coach. Who was number 2 on the list? Robert Gillespie, Alabama running back coach. Number 9 on the list. Holloman Wiggins, Alabama's wide receiver coach. Yeah. So like Freddie Roach is still right there. Now he's not. I don't think he'll get the nod, but no, I think that, if they could have kept Kelly on staff at safeties coach, they'd have been over the moon to keep Kelly on staff at safety coach. No question about that. But this opportunity for Charles Kelly is a great one. No doubt about it.
No. Very fair. Very fair. Okay. Hey, that was all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Hey, Ty, so what's your thoughts of Pete Golden leaving and going to Georgia?
So I said this in the video, right? And I think y'all have talked to me enough now. You kind of know how I like to style my content, right? Where it's not that I'm trying to ever sunshine pump, but I'm giving you a situation and giving you the positive spin on it, right? Because there's nothing you can do about the negative. So what do you do moving forward? You kind of pick yourself up. But here's the interesting thing there. Isn't that kind of saying the quiet part out loud? He left for a defensive coordinator position from the University of Alabama to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess by literal definition, that's a lateral move. Right. Exactly. But like that's.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I said Georgia by mistake. I mean, Ole Miss. Yeah. But,
that leads to another question for me on that. And you're right. What made it jump out to me is I'm wondering if the grind of Saban is getting to people. Well, that's what I'm curious about too.
I definitely think that he wanted to lower his expectation. And I think
he wanted more control.
Yeah.
Or he wanted more control, and Saban.
I don't even think it was a control thing. I think Saban trusted him, obviously, with some of the dumb things that he would go out to 245, right? But
146,
146, 245, yeah, all of that. So
no, we run a 245 successfully. It was the 146 that just makes absolutely no sense.
That's what I'm saying. So I think he put more stock and faith in Pete Golden than what we're giving him credit for. But I think Pete Golden went to a place where he has the lower expectations. I think
it's a great point.
Yeah, after a while, it kind of caught up to him. I don't know. It's something about being at Alabama, and here's a point. I always say, hey, he brought up a good point to me this morning. He said, if what they said about Ryan Grubb is true, that's stupid. Why? Because you have to look at the long term. It's Bama. Bama is going to set me up for a really good head coaching job if I go and do what I need to do there for 2 years. I see you shaking your head, but I'm just saying Washington is not going to get him where he wants to go if he wants to be a head coach at a significant.
Why no, Jay?
So I went back through and looked at all the coaches that have worked under Nick Saban over his entire tenure. And I'm going to be 100% honest. Offensive coordinators do not get good jobs underneath him unless they've been a head coach at multiple places. One person has gotten a good job under Nick Saban, Sarkisian. That's it.
Lane Kiffin.
Yeah,
Lane went to Florida Atlantic. Mike Locksley was the interim head coach at Maryland before he went to Alabama.
What about
and then went back to Maryland.
What about Jimbo?
Jimbo Jimbo was with him at LSU, went to Florida State as an offensive coordinator, and became the head coach in waiting under Bobby Bowden. Right. No, I went through every single coach, and it's no shade to Saban or anything like that, but Saban has had 8 offensive coordinators in the 16 years he's been in Alabama. That's an average of a change every 2 years.
But
let me go on the list. Let me go on the list.
The offensive shift Alabama had ever since they.
Well, that's the thing about it.
That's it.
That's the thing is, and that was going to be my point, is that Saban changes his offense to adjust to what's going on. But the unfortunate thing is his OCs do not translate next to new jobs. Like Jim McElwain, he was there the longest as an offensive coordinator for Alabama. He ended up at Colorado State for like 3 years before he get the Florida job. He didn't immediately, and even after national championships, he didn't even get a Power 5 job fresh from Saban's shadow. Now, defensively, listen me finish. Defensively, it does work, but the only way it works defensively for you to get a Power 5 job underneath Saban, you got to be there for at least 9 years. Both Jeremy Pruitt and Kirby Smart were underneath him for 9 years before they had the opportunity to get a head coaching job at a Power 5. My point is
Jeremy
this.
Pruitt was only defensive coordinator for 2 years.
He was on the staff for 9 years.
But if we're doing that, then Mario Cristobal counts, Billy Napier counts. If we're doing that, then I get to open up the flood books.
Well, and that's fair, but that's the thing. Comes to what did Mario go before he went up at Oregon?
Wasn't he?
I'm talking about like he is saying that go to Bama, you get a Power 5 head coaching job. The only person that got that was Sark, and Sark was head coach at USC and Washington before. He had experience. Lane screwed himself, but luckily, but that goes to Nick Saban's school of rehabilitating offensive coordinators over the last few years, which I give him mad props for. He does that.
But did Lane? I'm sorry, but
didn't Lane do that to himself?
Yes, it was all Lane. It was all Lane. I'm not saying this was Saban. I'm just saying it doesn't translate to immediate jobs.
A choice, not because it's all he had.
He turned down the Auburn job.
Yeah. I think he wanted just to get.
He turned down the Auburn job.
He wanted the Auburn job, but Auburn's job wasn't open yet.
Okay. I'm about to jump
in.
He
reached out.
I'm about to kill Jay's points. I really think that I see that you went and did your due diligence. I see that you did your homework. I'm glad that you got to get on here and show your work. But I think one of the things you have to also understand is that that's really situational, because we need to go back and take it as a full 360 and look at those years and see what jobs were really open. And if those jobs, because I mean, there's a lot of tenured coaches, because you're talking about 9 years, this and that. There's X amount of many Hall of Fame coaches that are not coaching anymore that were coaching at that time. And so that's my whole thing. I don't think it's a thing of that. I did have to disagree with that point, because I don't think you're taking in several factors. I think you're just looking at that one minute factor and saying they don't always get that top job. I think it's one of those things of what jobs are actually out there.
And here's where I'll take it further, right? Here's where my major pushback occurs. Alabama shifted their offensive philosophies in 2015. Ever since then, they've had Lane Kiffin, who's now the head coach at Ole Miss, Steve Sarkisian, who's now the head coach at Texas and was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, Brian DeBole, who's doing God's work in the NFL, Mike Loxley, who's with the Maryland. Sounds like they're batting pretty damn good to me.
Let's pull back on that. Dayball was an NFL guy, Belichick guy, that is also friends with Nick Saban. Remember, Nick Saban and Belichick trade stuff back and forth all the time. Came to college for 1 year, wasn't feeling it, and went back to the NFL. He already had NFL experience. It wasn't like he got looked at by NFL people. He was under Belichick for years.
But he got looked at in that position because of the work he had done offensive coordinator.
No, actually, he didn't. He got that. He moved back to the NFL because when he was at the Patriots, he's under Josh McDaniels. And he left to come to Alabama, went for a year, this is the weirdest thing too. Of all the quarterbacks that he's made great stuff happen, that 1 year with Jalen Hurts surprised me that that Hurts didn't throw for over 4,000 yards. Really weird. Has nothing to do with Hurts or Dayball. It's just a weird scenario.
Of the year?
He did. He only threw for like 2,700 yards, which was weird, but that's your point. That was the shift in the offenses. But my point behind what I'm saying is Sark was a head coach at 2 other places. I'm talking about guys that have never been head coaches.
Sure. He could be the mayor of China for all I give a damn. Where were people willing to hire him?
But Sark was hired to USC. see.
But
Like
I'm
he
saying
was
after that, Jay, after who was coming after Sark? Name me the list.
well, Sark
Give me
had
the
to
long
quit his
list.
job because of personal problems, which was my point. Like both Lane Kiffin and
here's
Sark
the
had
thing, Jay. Here's the thing.
personal
Now
issues.
you're purposefully avoiding. You're swimming around the question I'm asking you. This
I'm
is a simple question.
not.
No. It is. It's a one
I'm
word.
not.
No.
They
Yes or no?
both
Yes
stepped
or-
down from. They both lost their jobs because
Jay,
of stuff that they
people
did.
who are avoiding the question don't want to answer the question. I'm going to give
Okay,
you a yes
go
or
ahead.
no.
Okay.
Was there a long list of teams calling out for Lane Kiffin when Nick Saban got him? Yes or no?
No, not at all.
Was there a long list of teams calling out for Steve Sarkisian when he got him? Yes or no?
No.
Mike
They
Locksley,
weren't.
yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Locksley was the interim head coach at Maryland.
Yes, and
Remember
did they
that.
give him the head coaching job?
No.
No, and what
didn't.
opportunities did he get after that? He didn't. So he came to Alabama.
Okay.
So, but who else wanted him as an offensive coordinator?
I think he had some other offers, but he went to Alabama instead.
He went to Alabama for a reason, and now. So once again, I'm pointing the painting of we can cherry pick all of these things, but we have to look at the complete picture. You're giving us a glimpse of an eye and saying this is a male's eye, but you're not zooming out and showing us it's the Mona Lisa. It's not a male. It's what you're framing it to be. Argumentation is funny like that.
I
and
disagree
now that
with
we
you
open
there.
it up, I'm showing you that you're predicating all of your data off of really before Alabama's offensive philosophy changed. Ever since then, it has been a coaching rehabilitation. Nobody wanted those guys. They came in and got better offers after.
Well, I don't know if Florida Atlantic is a better offer, but
that was what he did on purpose. He
Yeah,
turned down head coaching jobs.
I
promise you, he turned down head coaching jobs at other.
Yeah, I think Lane just wanted to get away from Alabama. I'm just like, who's going to pay me, and I can do a little bit of work, and let me just recharge. Let me just recharge my batteries right quick. And so that's my opinion with Lane. But one thing I will say though, Ty, is yes, I don't think a lot of people were knocking down Sark's door or Kiffin's door. But one thing that Saban had done that I think has worked wonders for Alabama and a lot of these folks, hiring so many of these ex-coaches as analysts. And this is the first coach that you've seen have a full staff of ex-head coaches, ex-awesome defensive coordinators and like offensive coordinators come to work at Alabama for less than $30,000 a year to be an analyst to get rehabbed. I mean, that's pretty much it. Look at Charlie Strong. Charlie Strong was an analyst at Alabama just 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago, right? And then he left there to go work with Urban Meyer with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's like it's the coach's rehab. That's what Saban does. He gets folks that nobody wants anymore. He builds them up, builds their confidence up, puts them back, like to the league or back to college football to go do better things. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. Once he's changed the offensive identity,
because great philosophy change, I'm with you. Offensively, it's not a destination. After that offensive change, every coach that's came in has seen an increase in their career trajectory afterwards.
And their salary. Yeah, but okay, so just sticking on the OC standpoint, right? So I saw just a couple names here. Tell me what you guys think about these. First one was Cliff Kingsbury, right? We already talked about Ryan Grubbs. And then also two NFL names that I saw this afternoon, Freddie Kitchens and Greg Roman. My opinion, I don't think Saban's going to go the NFL route again. I think he's like, I'm done with the NFL route. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do something that's going to be fun and attractive to these kids when they come and play. Cliff Kingsbury, yes, he was in the NFL, but he got his chops in college football. I think a guy like Cliff Kingsbury would kill it. Does Cliff Kingsbury come back and coach? Does he want to recruit?
He's having fun in Taiwan.
Yeah. But that was his biggest knock.
Thailand.
You're right.
Yeah. There you go. That was his biggest knock. He hated recruiting, right? But a school like Alabama recruits itself. So does he really have to recruit there? He can say, I'm Cliff Kingsbury. You guys know who the hell I am. I am that guy when it comes to offense, and I'm going to be your OC, and Nick Saban's going to be the head coach. Like, how can you say no to that from an offensive standpoint? What you guys thoughts on that?
So there's also another name NFL-wise that I'd like to throw in, and I had no personal information here, but just like one that I would love, Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson. I didn't think about that.
Eagles quarterback coach. That's a name that I would be over the moon with if we could get him as offensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator, I just need the NCAA to clear Jeremy Pruitt. Give me that, and we're good to go.
Honestly, that's a good point. That's a good point. Pruitt's coming back would be perfect because he'd be able to run the defense you run before. They'd be hard nosed. They do everything you need to do. Honestly, the coordinator that I'm expecting is Dan Mullins. Dan Mullen. I mean, he needs to be rehabbed. Why not bring another one in? Another former head coach? Let him come in and do his thing.
He said he was fine in TV. I hope I'd be happy with that though.
Yeah, he's a Saban guy too. What about the name that's been floated around here for the last couple of weeks in Joe Brady?
Good with it. I'm very good with it. We saw what he did for LSU's passing game.
You saw what he did to Alabama when he was there.
It's burned in my memory. It's not good. Yeah.
I watched what he did to Oklahoma in the playoffs. Yeah. Yes, he would be great. I think the only problem with the Joe Brady, and me and Ty talked about this, we talked back and forth on it, is really this. Joe Brady has made it known he doesn't like recruiting. And I do not see Nick Saban not making people work. I just can't see it. I cannot see him saying, you know what? I'm going to be lax just for you. Nah, that's just not the Saban way. Like, his way is like Belichick. It's boring. It's annoying. It's grinding. But guess what it leads to? Championships.
Yeah.
Yes. Why would? Yeah, I don't see Joe Brady happening. Only because of that.
Yeah, I see Saban kind of going the route of somebody just a little bit more seasoned. I like the Dan Mullen. Jay, I didn't think about that. I think Dan Mullen would be an awesome pick. He's already worked with Saban before. He gets it. He's an older guy that's going to be stable, stay in the program for a little bit longer. Not going to chase the big job again, because Saban's having a problem with, I wouldn't say a problem, but it's just he goes and gets these high-profile guys who are bringing in awesome offenses to Alabama. And I used to tell my wife all the time, who's a Bama fan, I used to say, imagine Nick Saban if he went out and got a guy like Cam Newton to play quarterback at Alabama. They would be freaking unstoppable. He never recruited that kind of guy, and he never had the offenses that were just electrifying. Alabama was going to win very boring games, folks. It just was what it was. They're going to run the ball a lot. They were winning with A.J. McCarron and McElroy, okay? So, Coker. Yeah, so that's the kind of ball that he likes. Blake Sims.
Oh, I wish we would have won with Blake Sims. He was one of my favorite Alabama players of really big fan.
I feel so bad for the kid. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was winning with those kind of quarterbacks. So it's almost like he didn't want to flip the script and go all the way to the left when it came to these high-powered offenses. But when he did, once he finally flipped that switch, now you're seeing kids that run hell of offenses in high school. That are 5-star recruits at quarterback. And, I mean, these guys are wanting to come play for Alabama. And this is when you're seeing a guy like Jalen Hurts, who wasn't a 5-star, but he was a national top 200 player, right? Comes in and who can run the ball, who can pass the ball as well. You're seeing a guy like Tua come in and who could run the ball and pass the ball. And you're seeing a guy like Bryce Young. So you're seeing the maturation process of the quarterback position underneath Saban and these high-powered offenses. Once he got that, I thought sky was the limit. He actually won more without a high-powered quarterback. But, he had to adapt to assure that he kept up with the times. And I think a guy like Dan Mullen would be a great pickup. That was a good one, Jay. That's a good one.
And don't get it twisted. That's the one thing that I've said about Saban, about the school of rehabilitation. We make the joke, but I'm legit ecstatic for just how great he is for thinking of doing that. He's like, you know what? You're a coach that's in shambles. Come underneath me. Let me humble you, and then we'll start working on rebuilding your brand because you desperately need it. And he was smart. Also, the Lane Kiffin, bringing in Lane Kiffin and Sarkisian basically at the same time, roughly it feels like, knowing that you had to change your offense to compete long term. That's the genius of Nick Saban. That's the genius of the things he's done over the years. So, never knock him for doing it because he's smart. I'm curious, why have we not heard about Scott Frost down there in Alabama yet? I just don't get it. It's because Scott Frost has had some good offenses. No, he did very well UCF. I am surprised we haven't heard that name yet.
We talk a lot about the offensive coordinator, but I want to give a little bit of love to the defensive coordinator position.
Why? You're getting Jeremy Pruitt.
Hopefully, but there was a report that stated that Todd Grantham could be on the list of candidates, and I swear, I will just cry internally if Todd Grantham is the third and Grantham cannot take. I will call Pete Golding and move him back to Tuscaloosa personally if Todd Grantham is announced.
But what if Saban's going to be doing the rehabilitation of Todd Grantham?
Jay, I hear you. I hear you. But there's limits. There are limits to these things, and
there's levels to this. He ain't on the level I want.
And
the limits in the human body. You're right.
It's not.
It's gonna be interesting.
No,
I love it.
It can't be Todd Grantham. Please, God.
That's what's up. But hey, anything that happens when it comes to the OC and DC, Saban's going to make a right hire. He always does. Even when we thought Saban made bad hires, the team still did outstanding, to be honest with you. This is a down year for Bama. This is a down year, and they lost 2 games by a total of 4 points this year. This is a down year, folks. I mean, if
you ask Ty, that last hire at OC was not a good hire.
No, but what I'm getting at is, I'm not a fan of Bill O'Brien either. I didn't think he was a good, OC. My wife screamed at me every week. She screamed at the television. She didn't even know who the hell Bill O'Brien was, but she saw the offense this year and was like, "Who the hell is calling the plays?"
You mean 6-yard curl? You look at
NFL plays.
All 4 wide receivers.
NFL plays. He's running NFL offenses that don't work.
I know. It does not work.
When he left Bama, my wife called me and was like, "Baby, he's gone." Who's he? She goes, "Him."
That guy.
He's gone.
But it's funny. We look through the aisles of history at moments where you answer a call or there is a moment of mass public importance, and the moment is referred to, "He is gone," right? Like your wife calling you, "He is gone." The other one, we're stacking up in notoriety here. What's it? Ladies and gentlemen, we got him, right? We didn't need a name. We knew.
It's him.
It was him.
We knew who him was. Yeah.
All right. All right, we spent way too much time on these damn coordinators for your team, Ty. I'm just glad you guys don't have coordinators.
Spent way too much time trying to hire them.
I'm just glad you guys don't have coordinators yet, because we play you guys week 2, and I'm hoping this drags out all through the summer.
No. We got stuff we got to figure out.
All right, man. So last topic here, guys. Heupel's extension at Tennessee. Was this too soon? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
So if I could start this off, and I just have one really quick, because I don't necessarily disagree with it, right? Like the results are there. They had a great season. You look at the recruiting. Nicholas Iamaleava, I've said, I know he's not rated as the number 1 quarterback in the class. If you told me right now, Ty, Bama can get any quarterback in the nation, who do you want? Jackson Arnold, amazing playmaker. Dante Moore, unbelievable. Arch Manning, incredible. For whatever reason, I've always just thought Nico's game was so fun to watch. I've been a big fan.
Yes, most
so I get the extension, but guys, this is the Nick Saban extension. Right? Like, you beat Nick Saban. You have showed you're now here to play in the SEC, and you get the extension. Jimbo Fisher had the Nick Saban extension. Kirby Smart had earned it, right? Like, I don't think he needed to beat Nick Saban. His results were already a hair away from national title, right? But, I mean, you look at, like, even an Ed Ogeron. We thought he was the second coming. Granted, he had that incredible season, but beat Nick Saban, won the national championship. And so don't get me wrong. I'm obviously joking, right? Like that's only one of many factors as to why he got this contract extension, but you can bet your bottom dollar it's something that his agent brought up in negotiations. Like, we beat Nick Saban and we're here.
Well, first off, you know who his agent is. He's Jimmy Sexton all the way. Every SEC coach is Jimmy Sexton. Jimmy Sexton that man just gets rich everywhere. Yes. We don't have a face for him, but we know his name, and he's him.
He's him.
He's him.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
We got him. But to add to that, to be honest, I mean, you say that you're saying that playfully, Ty, and totally get it. But I agree 100%. This is the Nick Saban extension, and I don't like it. Not that I don't think that Heupel can do it, that he's worth extending. I hate when coaches get the extension after the second season of one really good year
That's
the
fair.
Mel Tucker effect, and then they go down the toilet bowl.
Tom
We
Herman.
don't know what next year is going to look like, especially because as much as I love Joe Milton, I don't know if anybody can help him. That dude just throws the ball so damn hard that he's going to throw it through one of his receivers' chest, and it's going to come out on the other end on one of these slants. It's going to happen. I promise you. He's the dude that will throw a javelin and it'll fly over like 3 states and hit somebody randomly in a parking lot. That's how strong that dude is when you see him throw. He's got a cannon. He's like a Cam Newton that's just not as athletic. That's what he looks like. Big, strong, and a rocket. I am just concerned that when you start paying these coaches this early and they don't produce the next year, they get comfortable. I don't think Heupel will. He's a former Sooner, so I still love him to death on that. I just don't like when they give him this money this early because it rarely works out. If you go back and look historically on this, most of these coaches that get that extension after one really good year, they've been fizzling out. That's bothersome to me. That just I'm nervous because it feels like more of a bad omen than it does that it's good faith to him. You see what I'm saying? Like it's not that it's him. It's just it feels like it's a bad luck move.
Every school who's thinking about extending the coach after one good season needs to go take a look at what Texas A&M did with Jimbo Fisher.
Boy, howdy.
And guaranteeing him all that. Was it 10-year, $95 million, 10-year, $98 million? And he got the
Mel Tucker.
Yeah.
Both.
He got the great class like the next year, and that's great. I mean, we get it. The whole class is in the transfer portal now. But it's look at that scenario. I would rather overpay a great coach late than to overpay a bad coach early. And
that's it.
It is what it is. Make them work for that contract. Make them work for it. They're already getting paid $4 or $5 million a year. Right. It just is what it is. You're at a school like Tennessee. He's not leaving. What other bigger brand of a school is he going to go to?
That's true.
It's going to have an opening. You're right.
Yeah.
It's going to have an opening.
Open. Georgia's not open.
Oklahoma, Michigan, Ohio State, USC.
Yeah. Texas. None of those schools are open.
None.
All right. So he is safe there. If he's talking about leaving, say, okay, go. Yeah,
I would have extended him next season. I would have extended him. This summer was to me just premature. It was just premature, and it's not. I understand he broke 15 single season records at Tennessee. Mm-hmm. I totally get it. He looks like he's the second coming of Phil Fulmer, and we may have a year where we may actually win a title, or we'll just go through and just be consistently winning. But it feels immature because it feels like a bad omen, man. I just don't want the bad luck to hit.
I want to see. I agree with Jay. I would have did it after this year because I think this year right here tells you a lot. Look, Joe Milton. I to be honest with you, I know that everybody is in love with Nico. Joe Milton has all the talent in the world to go out there and have a hell of a year.
Nico probably needs, in a perfect world, like Jackson Arnold, learn the system. But you guys know I'm pretty consistent in that. I think in a perfect world, a lot of these freshman quarterback come in, sit a year, and then
What I'm trying to say is this right here is that look, Hendon Hooker had an incredible career at Tennessee, and the year and a half that he was basically there. But you can argue that probably the most talented quarterback on that roster was sitting right there behind him. It's just the fact that Joe Milton can't put it together. You can't put 2 and 2 together right now. So
he was a starter last year.
Yeah.
And I was at the Pitt game when they benched him because I understood why. He kept throwing it 6 yards over his receivers' heads, and those receivers ran 4 threes.
Yeah. And he's a guy that has all the arm strength in the world. It's just, can he be consistent? And I think those were the problems at Michigan. Because to be quite frank with you, he was supposed to be the guy. He was next in line, and they tried to give him the job, I believe, at Michigan, but things just didn't work out.
They benched him.
So
they benched him for Cade.
When we talk about these extensions and all the rest of that stuff, do I think it's warranted? I mean, I think that it's a nod in the right direction because you're paying him back for the faith that he bestowed upon you guys coming there after the whole Jeremy Pruitt saga. But looking at the schedule, we're going to be able to figure out what Tennessee is made of real quick. They got Virginia. They should beat Virginia handily, but you never know. Virginia, 2 months to prepare, all that time to prepare. That could be a hell of a game. Austin P, we know
Well, that'd be their Super Bowl.
Yeah, we know that what that's going to be. The third game of the season, you go down there to you go to Florida, you go to Gainesville, and even though you're probably on paper better than them, that should be a tougher game this next year is what you're hoping. Then you come back UTSA. We know UTSA is going to be a tough game. It's not going to be one that you can just sleep on and come out there at 11 a.m. and play, poor football and expect to win that game by 30 still. And then they have South Carolina, which South Carolina, we already know they're up, they're down, they're down, they're up. Shout out to Spencer Rattler. And
Spencer did his thing last year.
Huh?
Hey, I like Spencer last year.
Yeah, Spencer showed
last year.
But Texas A&M and then Bama. So, I mean, your first, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your first 6 games, I mean, if you come out of there 5-1, or if you go out there undefeated, I mean, you're the number 1 team in the nation because, I mean, that's Bama, Texas A&M, Florida, and South Carolina on your schedule. That's a chunk of your schedule. But I got to see it on the schedule first.
Yeah.
And that's where I always go to whenever these conversations come up. I go to the schedule. Let's see what the schedule looks like for their next season. Let's see if that can validate what they went out there and did, because that's something that I think a lot of people have to understand. Somebody's going to regress next year, whether that be Oregon, whether that be let's see, whether that
Tennessee, LSU,
could be Bama next year. I mean,
it could be Clemson. It could be Clemson. Somebody is going to regress next year. That
Florida State.
No idea that could do
Florida State.
Do that.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Don't
all the expectations in the world, like for North Carolina had a lot of expectations coming into the season this year, and it's like, I'm not gonna say they necessarily regressed, but they just weren't. They didn't have that same magic they had these past couple of years, and it wasn't for the lack of effort on Drake May, but every year it happens. There's 1 to 2 teams that come out there, and you just like they drop a dud. So I think that this year will validate. It will show us whether that contract was either valid or not.
Yeah,
I just wanted to wait after this season because this is the year. You're right.
Yeah.
If Tennessee can go out there and win, if Tennessee can go out there and lose no more than 3 games this season, which would probably be Bama, Georgia, and we'll say,
South Carolina.
We'll say South Carolina, just to throw one out there. I don't think they lose this time. I think they actually finally beat them at home, but I digress. If they lose one of those with those 3, if they lose those 3 and they only lose 3 games, pay that man now because Nico's coming. Just like Ty said, Nico's probably coming in a year, maybe 2. And you're ready. You've got a future. It looks like it. That means that you are prepared mentally and physically to be good. But it's just, man, the bad omen, man. I'm terrified because of that. That scares me, man. I hate it when coaches get paid early because we get lucky enough that they start to just
Yes, exactly.
Scandal, something. We did that to Pruitt too, if I'm correct.
We did Tom Herman. Tom Herman had the season where he won the 10 games, beat Georgia, and then they gave him an extension right after that. And yeah, I think we're still paying Tom Herman.
Well, the problem was Pruitt's graciousness. Y'all gave him that extension, and he politely, like the gracious host he is,
Don't you dare say it. Don't you dare. Don't you say it.
Chick-fil-A bags and distributed it to the people. That's a true Robin Hood story. No. Let's get. That's not that. He's not that. No.
He's classy.
Donald's here.
Ty says he's classy.
Here.
Oh, okay. Chick-fil-A. He had the spicy sriracha sauce in there.
Kick Ty off. Because I'm tired.
He had a number 1 regular chicken deluxe with 3 Chick-fil-A sauces on there.
You gotta go.
And about $50,000. It's classy. We stay classy. No, Jay, I hear you. And listen, I understand why they did it, but I do agree with you, man. Like, if I was in charge at Tennessee, I don't know if I would have given him the extension, but I understand when I see the report that they gave him the extension because, like you said, he broke all the records. He gave you the results. He beat Nick Saban. He put Tennessee as one of the most talked about teams in the nation this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, damn, if you're listing a checklist of things you need to do to get an extension, my man's hit a lot of them this year. So but I do agree. Year 2, it's always early. It feels like a bad omen, but just pray you're not Jimbo.
Yeah, but I think Tennessee held all the leverage though. And I think they gave up the leverage when they went ahead and paid him. They didn't have to pay him now.
True.
He's already making a good salary.
Yeah.
They didn't have to pay him. They could have said, run it back, and let's do it.
Yeah.
But even saying that is not saying that I don't have confidence that you're going to do it again. It's just, let's just honor this contract and we got you, right? We got you. We understand that you're going to be great. Let's just honor this contract and we got you. So, but folks, we've been on here for an hour and 20 minutes. We did 5 great topics. Episode 1, folks, is in the books. Episode 1, SEC Connect is in the books, man.
We're not going for another hour?
No, we're not going for another hour.
Me and Ty's done it before.
But we haven't even started talking about SEC recruiting.
That's going to be the next episode. How about that? We'll do it. Yeah, next episode, we'll do the recruiting and we'll do a recap of the final signing day and do an evaluation of SEC classes.
I need some time. To research, even more digging, because there's a lot of digging.
That's why we got a week on this every Wednesday, folks.
I'll put it to you like this. Most of the 5 stars are in the SEC.
Did you see the Joel Klatt stat on that? We talked about that. Oh, my God.
That is crazy. It's going to be interesting. That's a good topic for next week. So next
21
week,
5 stars in the SEC.
Jesus Christ. There's only 32 in a class.
And that's not counting Oklahoma and Texas either. That's current SEC schools.
And we got 3 or 4. We got Anthony Hill. We got Arch, of course. I think
Jonte Cook.
Yeah. Derek Williams.
Cedric Baxter.
Cedric Baxter. Damn, we got 5. No.
Well, I
Derek
think y'all
5-star.
4. Derek Williams ended up as a 4. Cedric Baxter the 5, and then Oklahoma got 2.
Yeah. So there we go. That might be 27 out of the 32 or 33 5-stars are from the SEC teams combined with the 2 teams who are going to the SEC next year. That, my friends, I'm going to end this podcast like this, folks. That, my friends, is why Texas and Oklahoma are moving to the SEC. It's because the talent, the collective balance of talent, it's not a balance. The talent is in the SEC, and that is why Texas and Oklahoma are going to be there next year. But, folks, thanks for joining in. The SEC Connect, go around the room. What's calling them out? Ty Hayes, Jay, and Chris, you better throw them damn horns up. Peace. Deuces.